Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the show where a real statistics professor gives you sports betting tips. I'm your host, Professor Steins, and I have built a set of mathematical models named Sideline to predict various sports outcomes. You'll hear more about the model during the course of this episode, set to cover 6 Major League Baseball games scheduled to be played on Wednesday, June 7th, 2023. In case you're new here, check out the webpage on the banner. It's www.pickswiththeprofessor.com/new for some explanations and community rules. If you're interested in projections and picks for every single game, sign up on Dub Club. Cost under $1 per day. Links in the show description get you access to the Discord chat where we talk about betting on all sorts of sports, including, of course, the NHL and NBA finals. Some tennis with the French Open, golf, MMA, all sorts of stuff over there on the Discord chat. Get you the A-plus play of the day, which is still around that 10% on the season, all the extra A grades and totals that we aren't covering on show. The price needed for an A grade on every single game. Got a lot of goodies over there on Dub Club. Again, under $1 a day. Sign up link in the show description. Remember that sports are unpredictable, so the discussion on this show projects a typical game and does not try to forecast it to a T, as it'd be a foolish and impossible goal. We'll take a long-term view on here and don't get distracted. When the umpire in San Diego decides that he's going to call 2 of the Cubs out in the first inning on pitches that are like 4 inches outside and then not give Hendricks the calls on the other side, and that was just kind of a mess. And that stuff happens, unfortunately. You just never know when the umpires are going to be for you or against you. It's not personal. They're just doing their best, but sometimes it helps and sometimes it hurts. It will balance out in the long run. It's just hard to foresee before it happens. In other words, please understand that good and bad variance will occur. So as much as I'd like to say it'll be profitable each and every day, that is an impossible reality for any gambler. The idea being long-term, we've been successful. We're going to keep doing it. We're going to talk about 6 games here. I'm probably going to nail one of them to a T. I'm probably going to miss one of them like crazy. And we're not really concerned about what happens in one game. What we're concerned about is the totality, the overall predictive ability of the model. It's done great for us so far. We're just going to keep trusting that process. Kind of like I mentioned before, right? Monday it was a good bounce back day for us in a lot of games. Easy A-plus play of the day winner in the Astros against Alek Manoah, who unfortunately now we don't get to fade in the near future. But, it's just like I talk about, more good days than bad days. And that's what we're hoping. Hopefully that Tuesday happening. Games are getting going right about now as I'm recording. Hopefully the rest of Tuesday goes well for us. And Wednesday got you covered from start to finish. Got you covered for the late game, the early game, the middle games. Should be a great day of baseball. But before we get to it, some quick reminders. Please hit that like button if you're on YouTube. Also, if you aren't yet, please consider subscribing or following. It's free. And if you turn on notifications, you won't miss any of the college basketball, MLB, or college football content this channel provides. The way I scale picks, A grade moneyline plays will return 4 units. That is, the risk plus win amount adds up to 4. B grades return 3. C grades return 2 totals or flat bet. It's like flat betting, but it's a little bit more dynamic. Instead of just saying we're going to bet to win 1 or we're going to risk 1, we kind of play with the numbers a little bbit. It does the math for me, as opposed to me having to look at a dog. Like if we're going to play the A's hypothetically later today, maybe not. We'll see. You got to look at it. You got to say, do I really want a full unit on that, or do I want a half unit on that, or do what? A lot of our picks, our big picks, are 2-3 unit plays. Do I want to put 2 units on that sort of thing? Kind of just does the math for us here by this ABC grade scaling. So I kind of like it. You can see it on screen. Check it out if you like it. But with that, with the picks, with everything, take what you like and leave the rest. Starting off here, that athletics game. 12:30 p.m. Eastern. You're going to take the A's at plus 143. It's a B grade pick. Model says plus 147 would be an A grade. There's probably no rush on this. I can't see the A's taking any steam. So, I don't really think you need to run to the window to bet plus 143. If he gets up to plus 147, it's an A grade. Just kind of wait it out and see where it goes. I think that this is priced too high. I think there's value on the A's, and usually the number goes towards the model. So this is a situation where, because I know the number usually goes towards the model, I'm putting a little bit on the A's now, but I'm holding back. And if the number gets better, then I can put even more. And that's kind of what the B grade implies here at these plus odds. Model says it should be Pirates minus 133, that they win 57% of the time. Bottom line on this, Hogan Harris, not as bad as he's looked. 10 innings pitched, not a good ERA, but the underlying metrics suggest he's been serviceable. He's got the prospect pedigree. His numbers in the minors are decent enough. I think he can be similar to a JP Sears. I don't think he's drastically different. Sears kept us in that game Monday. We couldn't quite pull it out at big plus odds, but it was looking good for a while. He just didn't go quite deep enough. And I think Hogan Harris is kind of a similar guy. I think that, if you get distracted by a couple of his outings here this year, you're going to get misled, but he hasn't thrown that many innings. It's not going to see but one good outing. To all of a sudden his numbers look good. That good outing could easily come against the Pirates offense. That's a much weaker than it was at the start of the season. We talked about that a lot. Thing to note, the A's may switch this up. So if you're betting pitcher dependent, which you should be, and if you're not, you can do that easily at BetOnline or BetUS. Sign-up links are in the show description. For those two offshores that have good prices, early lines out, you absolutely need an account at least at one of those two. If you're betting pitcher dependent, the A's so far, both times he's pitched, have thrown an opener in front of him. So that might be the case. If so, it doesn't change the handicap. If it's just an opener and we expect Harris to get the bulk of the innings, he's listed as a starter right now, but you just never know what they're going to do with it. So I don't know if they're going to actually let him start or not. I haven't dove too deep into it, but just keep an eye on that. If you are betting pitcher dependent and they do announce an opener, you will need to rebet to make sure that you get your number in on this one. Or you can just take action and not care. This is a situation where I would do that because it doesn't really matter if Hogan starts or an opener starts. I think the A's have some good value as a dog. I think they're a live dog. Unlike on Tuesday where, we're on the Pirates big, this is a situation where I think the A's have a chance to win close to 50%, 43% is about as close to 50% as they get all season, it seems like. And part of that is that Roansy Contreras for the Pirates, not very good. 4.82 ERA on the season. Advanced metrics say that's pretty spot on. In fact, maybe he should be a little bit worse than that. This A's offense isn't bad, and it kind of compares pretty equally to the Pirates. Obviously, the A's bullpen is a lot tougher. It blew it for us Monday. It could easily blow it for us here, but this is one of those things where the A's are going to win some games, and this is a decent chance for them to win. Plus 143, I think, makes a little bit of sense. You could play it on the run line if you want. I'm not touching the run line. I know they covered the run line on Monday, but I'm not touching the run line here specifically because I like the over 8.5. I think it's more likely to be a 6-4 type game, a 7-3 type game. Sometimes a little bit more crazy with the runs. Model projects 9.9 runs. It'll be about 70 degrees for the totality of this game, and the wind will be blowing out at 10 to 15 miles an hour. So you're going to see some home runs, potentially some routine fly balls turn into doubles in the gap, things like that. With extra runs happening with the Pirates starter not being very good, with the A's relievers not being very good, I think that these offenses aren't going to put up 7 apiece necessarily, but somebody's going to score some runs in this game. It could be a wild game, and if so, that just makes the plus odds even more exciting. So I'm on the over here. I like the plus odds because I don't really know what's going to happen. I think it might be a wild afternoon game. Hopefully it's entertaining for us. I think it's the only game at this time slot. But I think the A's are a live dog. Hoping the number gets up towards plus 150, and that's where it becomes an A grade. That's where I'll add a little bit more, but I'm comfortable locking it a little bit at the B grade here, as I think the Pirates are overpriced in a game where they do not have a starting pitching edge, and they don't really have an offensive edge either. So it's not like the Pirates, should be big favorites in this one. That's why we're on the A's here. 4:10 p.m. Eastern, Mariners to Padres. Look, both of these teams, you might have your American League favorite and National League favorite if you were talking about most disappointing teams of the season. Both these teams hovering around 500. I'm on the Mariners at an A grade. The model's cooled off of them. We backed the Mariners a lot. Haven't done great doing it so far. They were great to us last year. We're still up on them. If you take last year and this year combined, even this year's struggles, we're still way ahead of the Mariners. We made so much money on the Mariners last year. Model's kind of cooled back and realizing that they aren't good. The model has adjusted. Here's the thing, is that it's just a big picture discrepancy in this one between George Kirby and Michael Wacha. And I think that's where we're going to get the value. So I'm trying to identify why we're getting value. I think in the A's game, I think the value coming on the A's is that I think Hogan Harris is actually the better pitcher between him and Roansy Contreras. And I'm not sure people realize that. Here, I think we're getting the value because I think people realize that George Kirby is a better pitcher, but I don't think they realize by how much. And that's why the Mariners at plus odds are an A grade here. Model says they should be favored to the price of minus 115, that they win over 53% of the time. Anything minus 104 is or better is an A grade. So if you want to play minus 105, if that's what you're looking at as an A grade, that seems perfectly reasonable. But the Mariners bullpen is elite Offensively, the Padres have an edge, absolutely, but the gap between Kirby and Waka is larger than the gap between the Mariners and Padres offensively, and the Mariners, of course, have the good bullpen to back it up. Waka's looked good so far this season on his results, 3.48 ERA, but the underlying metric suggests his ERA should be in the mid-4s. I think he's a league average pitcher, where I think George Kirby is a very good pitcher. Maybe not great, but he's not Luis Castillo, but he's still a really good pitcher, and that makes the difference in this game between two offenses that have really struggled. Give me George Kirby at plus odds, a great pick, tremendous value, and there's really not a ton more to say on it than that. With regards to the total, the ball flies a little bit better there in the day, something to keep in mind on. If you wanted to go the under route, that's not a bad play. Total I'm seeing right now is 8. I'm not doing it yet. I'm not pulling the trigger yet. I'm just waiting to see some better odds and some different lines, but I like the under. So thinking about the under 8 here, model projects 7.2. Wind will be blowing mostly across. Chilly day in San Diego, like it always tends to be, it seems like. I'm just not loving the under quite as much, but these unders, even the ones I haven't loved as much, have still come through for us in San Diego, even when they shouldn't. For one reason or the other, they still keep hitting. The books have not adjusted enough. I just like this one a little bit less than I do maybe like Tuesday's under or like Monday's under, just because the fact that the ball carries just a little bit better there in the day than at night. This being a 4:10 Eastern start is 1 o'clock local time. So the ball will carry just a little bit better like it did on Sunday. We held on to that under on Sunday, barely by the hair of our chinny chin chins. I think this one holds on under as well, but it's just a little bit closer of a call. So I lean under. I'm thinking about the under. I'm not pulling the trigger yet, but under's the way I'd be looking. For sure would not be playing an over, because the better offense is the Padres, but the better pitcher is Kirby. I think Kirby can shut them down, and I don't really trust the Mariners to put up like a 7 spot against anybody. Waka is decent enough to get outs. This sets up to be a 3-2 type game. So I think under 8 still makes a lot of sense. I just like the Mariners more than the under, but the under's the way to go. Mariners A-grade play, also a strong play. Speaking of under, 6:05 p.m. Eastern, Tigers at the Phillies. A good under bet here, and I'm not going to bury the lead. Why is that? Reese Olson, good, okay? And people don't realize that yet. Looked good his first start out. The underlying metrics suggest he was even better than the fact that he went 5 innings, only gave up 2 earned runs. Projects to be well above average, good pedigree, good minor league numbers. I think people are treating him like you would think you would treat a Tigers pitcher coming up. But I think he's better. I think he maybe should have been in the rotation all season, and or the Tigers have had some injury issues, right? And their rotation might actually be pretty good if they could have stayed healthy, right? So that's kind of the other kind of asterisk in this, that the Tigers have started some weaker starting pitching, but part of that's injuries, right? This kid's actually good, though, and I think that's why the under makes a lot of sense here, because people don't realize that. People know that Zach Wheeler's good. People don't realize that Reese Olson is good. That's why there's value, in my opinion, on this under 8. Model says 7.1. We're going to have winds blowing in at 10 to 15 miles an hour. It's going to knock the ball down. That's going to help us out. We're going to start off in the mid-70s. We're going to close around 60 degrees. If we aren't getting runs early, it's going to be harder and harder and harder. Wind still going to be strong, in temperatures dropping. Tigers bullpen, decent enough. Phillies bullpen at least has been maybe a little better of late, I guess. But the bottom line is I don't really trust either offense. I know the Phillies had an offensive explosion on Monday, but I think against Reese Olson, I don't think they're going to put up the same 11 spot or whatever that was. With regards to the side, model says Tigers plus 208 is B grade value, so it should be Phillies minus 202. This is one where if I was to play this, I would really be looking Tigers run line. Why is that? I think it's going to be a low scoring game, and that makes the run line have a little bit more value than otherwise. If the total is well priced, make sure you hear me on this. This is kind of a confusing concept, but I want to make sure we're on the same page. If the total is well priced, whether it's a low total or a high total, the run line doesn't have any increased value based off of the run scoring. But if the total is mispriced, if you think the number should be lower, that makes the plus 1.5 a better play, because the books aren't factoring in the lower amount of runs that you think it should have, and that makes it more likely to be a 1-run game. If you think the total is off the other direction, that the number should be higher, it makes the minus 1.5 have a little bit more value. So that's something to think about if you're playing run lines. How you feel about the total actually should help inform how you feel about the run line. I think this is an under. I think the Tigers plus 1.5 makes more sense. I'm not playing it yet. Again, just kind of waiting around, seeing the numbers, want to shop around, and early on in the day before, you just don't have as many options. So I just want to see some numbers on this one. But I think the Tigers would be the way I would look Zach Wheeler is good enough to shut down the Tigers. But what I said about Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler is lather, rinse, repeat. Wheeler hasn't looked good this year. Another guy just like Nola, I own in fantasy and our dynasty league, been kind of disappointing. Advanced metrics say he should be better than his 4.33 ERA, but it just hasn't been that good. It's a step back for him, just like it's been Nola. But just like I said with Nola, and you saw giving up one hit, and of course that one hit provided 3 unearned runs, thankfully unearned for me from the fantasy standpoint. But if you're going to turn it around, like you were hoping Nola, hopefully that turns him around. If you're going to turn around for Wheeler, same thing, right? At home against the Tigers, that's when to do it, right? So I still think he'll do well, but there's, I think the Tigers have a little bit of value because this isn't really the vintage Zach Wheeler yet. Hopefully he gets it figured out, and this is when he gets it figured out. But the Phillies are priced too high that without Wheeler being really in form, I can't back the Phillies at this price. I'm okay taking a big favorite if it makes sense, if it's valuable, if that's where the edge is. Taking the Pirates at a huge price on Tuesday night. This isn't it for the Phillies because this is not the Zach Wheeler that I trust with that regard. That said, I still think the under makes sense simply because, and I don't want you to think that I'm contradicting myself. I think the under makes sense because for the over to go awry, we're going to have something like Monday where one team scores like 11 runs, which sure that happens in baseball, but that is not common, right? We don't expect that. The other way it goes over is if both teams score a lot of runs and you look at it and you say, Wheeler could be on, Olsen could be on, both these guys could be, there's just a lot of ways that this goes under. So the under is kind of the safer of the two plays because even if Wheeler struggles, which he might, and it turns out to be a 4-2 game, the Tigers score 4 runs. I'm not sure how many runs the Phillies score. This offense is right around league average at this point. They're not great, not with the way they're currently constructed. And like I said, I think the Tigers have been scrappy this year, playing a lot of low-scoring games. So I think the Phillies win. According to the model, they win 67% of the time. But they don't win with enough probability that makes the price that they're at right now justifiable. So if I was playing a side, I'd be playing the Tigers, be looking at the run line, but the under, I think, is the strongest play in this one. 6:10 p.m. Eastern, Royals at the Marlins. I think the Marlins at -162 B grid. Like I said, I'm not afraid to take a favorite if that's where the value is. I think that's where the value is on this one. Jordan Lyles and Edward Cabrera. Lyles has been terrible. This last start, he actually pitched pretty well. Then the bullpen struggled for him. And that's the thing with the Royals. The Royals have just been a disappointment. When their starters pitch well, the bullpen lets them down. When the starters and the bullpen pitches well, the offense lets them down. When the offense lets them down, the starters let them down. It's just been a disaster for the Royals this year. And I don't really see how that changes. Edward Cabrera is a solid pitcher. We talked about how he can be kind of hit or miss. I'm much more fearful of backing Cabrera against a good offense. This Royals offense isn't good, in my opinion. And the advanced metrics for Cabrera are promising and suggest that he might be going in the right direction and that ERA is just lagging behind. So it's a situation where if he keeps pitching this well, give it another month, his ERA might drop below 4 and you might become more of a believer. But I'm looking at it. I'm kind of jumping on board Cabrera, and I think I'm hesitantly thinking he's going the right direction. Lyles, I know he had a really good start last time out. Even though his advanced metrics are better than that ERA, it's still terrible. He's one of the weaker pitchers in baseball. And this Marlins offense, while not great, should be able to hit around Lyles and those relievers. Models says this should be Marlins -170. Anything -153 or better is an A grade. So we're not really close to the A grade, but I think the Marlins are still a reasonable play here. If the price gets better, we can add more to it, but I still think this is worth investing in as long as you're -170 or better on the Marlins. I don't want to pay too big of a price beyond that, but fading the Royals has been profitable, and I don't see why we shouldn't here. It's kind of that simple. With regards to actual total is 8.5. Model projects 9.1. I would definitely look over anytime Lyles is involved. You can think over anytime the Royals bullpen's involved. You can think over. I don't love it. Why don't I love it? This Marlins offense, like a good day for them, might be scoring 5 runs, and this could easily be a 5-3 game. I think if Cabrera is figuring it out, he could easily allow 2 runs or 1 run or something like that. So I don't love this over. Model says go over. If I had to play it, I'd play over. If it gets to 8, I'm playing over 8, 8.5. I like over. Don't love it, but I definitely think the Marlins is worth our investment. 7:05 p.m. Eastern, Diamondbacks at the Nats. I'll take the Nats at plus 118. This is a pretty coin tossy type game. Model says the Nats can win 47% of the time. If it gets up to plus 125, that becomes an A grade. Patrick Corbin's been a decent pitcher to back. He's been mispriced really all season. He's been decent. He's not good, but he's being priced if he's terrible. And he's just meh, which is acceptable if you're being priced like you're terrible. Underlying metrics suggest his ERA should be more in the mid fours, just very meh. But again, he's being priced like he's really, really bad. I don't think he is. You know who is bad in my opinion? Zach Davies. 5.40 ERA on his 18 innings this season. Advanced metrics say around 5 makes sense. He does not project well. And I think the Nats have a starting pitcher edge. I can't believe I'm saying that. Patrick Corbin, but here we are. Diamondbacks are the better team, but with Corbin being the better starter, this game being in Washington, I think anything can happen. I think plus 118 makes sense. I don't really know what's going to happen, but I like grabbing the dog here. I'm also going under 9. I like the minus 103 close to even money. Model projects 8.4. Like I said, I'm trying to figure out where there's value, why there's value on certain things. I think the value that we're getting here is that Patrick Corbin's still being mispriced. If he's being mispriced with regards to the side, he's being mispriced with regards to total as well. Wind is going to be blowing in at almost 10 miles an hour. We have another situation where we're going to start off in the mid-70s but close in the mid-60s. If you're not getting runs early, it's going to be harder and harder and harder. That wind's not dying down as the night goes along, and it's just going to make the ball fly a little bit less, get those relievers in there. And, the Nats relievers, they're kind of like the A's in that they grade out terribly because they have no depth, but they got a couple guys who are decent. If the Nats are in this, they use those decent guys, it's going to make the under even more appealing. If the weaker pitchers for the Nats get involved, then we could have a lot of runs in a heartbeat. But I'm thinking the Nats hang in there and they use their better relievers. That's going to make the under even more likely to hit. Again, model says 8.4, but I really think 8 probably makes a lot more sense as a total. Under 9 around even money, way too good to pass up. And then a late game for you here, Cubs at the Angels. It's not this simple, but it kind of is this simple. I think people just don't realize that this Cubs team is like 14 right-handed hitters. I'm not even sure they have a lefty on the team at this point that's healthy. Like, maybe I'm wrong. If you're a Cubs fan, let me know who the lefty is. The discrepancy I see on the Cubs between right-handed and left-handed rankings on this one just tells, like, without even looking at the roster, just tells me, like, the model's pulling in all this stuff. I've automated all that, just telling me it's like an entirely right-handed team. It's like maybe one lefty, maybe. But it's kind of as simple as, like, hey, the Cubs are playing a lefty. They might have some value. Cubs are playing a righty. I don't want any piece of them, right? This Cubs offense can really struggle. Even against a lefty, they can struggle, but they got a chance against a lefty. Against a righty, I don't like their odds. I like Jaime Barria. He's not as good as that 159 ERA, but the advanced metrics says the ERA should be in the mid-3s. That's plenty good and plenty good to handle a Cubs right-handed heavy offense. Angels minus 125 is a B grade pick. I'm very comfortable locking this in now. I doubt it gets better. It almost never does with the Angels involved. If it does drop to minus 119, that's an A grade play, but I'm not holding my breath. But I'm very happy to put a little bit of coin here on the Angels. Taillon is not as bad as that 7 ERA, but I think that Barria is the better pitcher. Angels offense is a lot better, and the only area that the Cubs have an advantage is the bullpen, but it's not by a ton, really. The biggest area that the Cubs have an advantage in the bullpen really is their depth more than their back-end guys. The Cubs' back-end guys really leave a lot to be desired, so if they have a lead, it's not like they've got the shutdown guys to handle it. They just have the depth in case Taillon struggles, but if Taillon struggles, then that means the Angels have got some runs anyway. So it's kind of a win-win situation, right? Either the depth's not going to matter, or if it does matter, it's because we've already got the runs backing the team, or for the team we're backing. So Angels minus 125, pretty good play. Model says it should be minus 132, that they win this about 57% of the time. And the Angels are a solid play. And like I said, it's not this simple, but kind of a little thing to remember in the back of your brain is look at who the Cubs are facing, righty versus lefty. And that probably tells you which way you want to be based off of how they've looked here the last couple of weeks. Total in this one's 9. Model says 9.2. I'm not touching the total. The other ones I kind of had a lean, or here's where I'm thinking. Not touching this one at all. I think 9's pretty well priced. It's going to be a chillier night in Anaheim, low 60s, but the wind will be blowing out close to 10 miles an hour for most of this game. I think that the Angels can score some runs on Taillon. I'm not sure how many they score on Barria. I think 9's pretty good. I have no feel for this total whatsoever. But again, I'm very comfortable playing the Angels. It's a B grade according to the model. I'm kind of okay playing them as an A grade. If that's something you're down with, I think there's a lot of value on the Angels here. Given the fact that I think Barria is pretty good right-handed in the Cubs, I just don't see him having a lot of success against a righty. So I'm kind of looking at this one saying official model grade might be a B, but I'm kind of thinking about maybe let's play it as an A grade. I think the Angels make a lot of sense here to wrap up your Wednesday night. That's all I've got for you here today. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Picks with the Professor. Don't forget to subscribe so you can enjoy the sports betting content provided on this channel. Dropped right into your feed. Be back again tomorrow with more sports betting content. And until then, as always, best of luck. And remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.